In the name of God, the most gracious and the most merciful. Those who have knowledge and those who do not cannot be equal. The future, with all its potential and challenges, depends to a great extent on good citizenship and the contribution of productive elements of society. Human capital is the real wealth of a nation. Hence, it is vital to invest in this through education and training. With the advent of the third millennium, GCC countries are faced with multiple challenges that must be tackled head-on, rather than avoided. These challenges include globalization, the fast pace of technological advances, media openness, knowledge explosion, and the emergence of new economic and cultural blocs. These require establishing a balance between openness to the rest of the world whilst maintaining the national Arab and Islamic identity, in addition to encouraging good citizenship that stems from this identity. These objectives have formed the cornerstone of the educational process in the region. They are the source of emphasis and the target of the educational curriculum. It's evident that education has come a long way in the Arabian Gulf area. Only a few decades ago, the citizens of the Gulf suffered from complete illiteracy. Governments have therefore opted to expand quantitatively, giving educational opportunities to as many citizens as possible. Indeed, the result of this policy was very evident as towards the end of the 20th century, more than 25,000 educational institutions existed in the area and were attended by almost 6 million students at all levels of education. The curriculum was administered by over 500,000 teachers and educators of both sexes. During the past 3 decades, attention has shifted towards qualitative improvement of the educational process in the area. Based on a combination of studies that evaluated the educational process and the established future visions of the countries in the region, the quality of education was improved and modernized to serve the intended purposes stated in these visions. In an attempt to better understand education in the GCC countries, let's look at the process in each country through the eyes of the officials in charge.
We argue that education should be self-driven. Our role is to make students want to learn and able to learn. This makes the role of teachers even more important. They are asked to direct, assist, and advise students as to the best sources of knowledge, sometimes away from books.
The educational process in the United Arab Emirates has undergone many phases, each having its own characteristics. The process began with the most elementary form of education offered by the mutawas in simple schools called kutab. Then came the phase where capable individuals contributed through the construction of learning centers. Then there were the educational scholarships that came from Arab countries like Kuwait, Egypt and Qatar, among others. This phase was accompanied by the erection of the first schools in the country like Al-Qadsiya, Al-Ahmadiyya and Al-Falahiyya. The Declaration of the Union in 1971 drove education to become a top priority. The leaders of the Union exerted tremendous efforts, creating major improvements in the quality of learning and provided more educational opportunities to citizens than were ever available before. The number of both teachers and students rose and the state spending on education multiplied. 710 government schools were operative by the year 1999-2000 and were attended by over 300,000 students. By 2002, there were more than 1,200 government schools. Technical education also boomed and was given increased attention. More than 1,700 students currently study in more than 100 technical classes. Higher education received its share of investment and development too. There are more than 25 higher education institutions encompassing all sciences and majors. More than 11,000 students attend the three main universities in the Union, namely the University of the Emirates, Zayed University, and higher technology colleges.
The benefits of development in the field of information and communication technology will have to be reaped. Books are no longer the only means to communicate knowledge. In fact, they're no longer attractive to our students, as they're rivaled by the advent of TV and computers. We're supposed to provide material in the form that attracts students with the use of multimedia.
The Kingdom of Bahrain firmly believes that good citizens are the aim of education. The government provides education to all children of all ages. Educational facilities are open to all citizens and residents in the kingdom, as provides books for free. Several pivots control the educational policy adopted by the Kingdom of Bahrain. First, making education available to all. Second, linking education to the actual needs of society and development programs. Third, emphasis on Bahraini citizens by investing and providing local educators. The educational process in the Kingdom of Bahrain is divided into several stages encompassing preschooling, elementary and intermediary schooling, then secondary, commercial and industrial schooling. Formal education began in 1919 in the kingdom and noticeable developments were witnessed. In the year 2002, around 600 students attended each government school and the total number of students reached more than 150,000. The University of Bahrain and University of the Arabian Gulf are attended by more than 2,700 students. Added to them are students attending private colleges and those on scholarships outside the kingdom. In 1953, higher education was formally established in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It aimed at spreading education throughout the kingdom, setting the stage for the construction of one or more universities and the expansion of scholarships to ultimately achieve self-sufficiency among Saudi educators. In 1929, the total number of students in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia was 2,300. However, thousands more attended schooling in the period between 1970 and 1998. In 1970, the number of students was almost 600,000, whilst more than 4 million students were registered in 1998 at all educational stages.
We believe in the comprehensive development of curriculum. By that, I'm not referring to updating books, but an overall development encompassing the use of other media for education, incorporating activities, guidance, and a proper learning atmosphere. We are working towards building proactive students, students who think rather than simply learn by rote. So, we're focusing on tutoring styles and the different ways information can be passed on to these young people. We want our students to be able to think analytically, understand problems, and come up with solutions. We want them to be comfortable dealing with the technology and to be able to differentiate between good and bad information.
The developments in Saudi Arabia's educational process were by no means limited to the content of curriculum. Astonishing developments have also occurred on the quantitative level. By the advent of the year 2000, the number of higher educational facilities was 8 universities, more than 80 technical colleges and institutes, and more than 200 million riyals were reserved for education, representing more than 22% of the overall budget for the kingdom's 6th development plan. Also, in response to the needs of Saudi society, non-profit private colleges were established in the year 2000 in different locations around the kingdom as an extension to the role of the formal universities. Heavy attention was also given to scientific research. The King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology consists of institutes that conduct research in the areas of energy, natural resources, environment, space, atomic energy, astronomy, and geophysics. The kingdom is also implementing an ambitious educational project called Watani, where education will reach all parts of the kingdom through the internet, as this is seen as one of the most effective forms of delivering education around the world. Education in the Sultanate of Oman has always been dynamic. It strikes a great example of balancing quantitative growth with qualitative development in a manner that is directly linked to the needs of a national development. Quantitatively speaking, the number of schools has increased from 3 in 1970 to over 1,200 in 2002. This increase also reflects the growth in the numbers of students attending these schools. In 1970, only 900 students were registered in schools. By 2002, there were over 600,000 male and female students registered. Education was further expanded to allow adults to catch up. More than 8,600 adults were registered in adult education facilities, whilst the number of attendees in literacy eradication programs reached over 5,600 in the year 2002. The Sultan Qaboos University, established in 1986, is considered the foundation of higher education in the Sultanate. It served 550 students in its first year. However, by 2001, more than 10,000 students attended the university. Sultan Qaboos University consists of 7 colleges, namely Education and Islamic Sciences, Medicine, Engineering, Agricultural Sciences, Literature, Commerce and Economics. There are currently 12 private universities and colleges in Oman. The establishment of a separate ministry to manage higher education in 1994, along with external scholarships, gave a boost to the Sultanate's development process. Formal education in the state of Qatar was established in 1952. One school for boys was opened and attended by 240 students and 6 teachers. In 1957, school regulations were set and the first ministry to manage education was established. The first group of students graduated from school in 1958. The past 20 years brought around significant growth in the number of students at all stages. By the year 2000-2001, more than 75,000 students attended government schools and more than 3,800 students graduated from secondary schooling. More than 2,000 of them were Qatari nationals. Qatar is applying a new educational strategy. New schools have been established, such as the Technical Industrial School and other secondary schooling facilities. The aim is to develop education in general and vocational education in particular. 2 new schools, one for each sex, were established in the year 2000 and follow the most contemporary teaching methods.
We in the Gulf, and particularly in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, are in dire need of mechanics and technicians. We need trained nationals in technical fields, and for the time being, this is what we are trying to achieve.
Many developments have taken place in the education in the state of Qatar. Particularly noteworthy is the establishment of the Qatar Institute for Education, Science and Society Development, a non-profit organization that aims to secure development to current and future generations through a selection of long-term programs. In turn, Qatar Institute's most insignificant achievement is the establishment of the Qatar Academy, which aims at establishing a proper balance between the local culture and traditional values on one hand and the latest trends and developments in the field of education on the other. The Institute also established the Center of Learning, which attempts to assess students and identify and help them realize their full potential. The Institute also established the Virginia Commonwealth University, also known as the Qatar College of Design and Arts, and the Technical Canadian College, as well as the Wales Medical College of Cornell University. The state of Kuwait was an early promoter of the importance of education as a national priority rather than simply a societal right. Kuwait made large long-term investments in education and ruled the completion of elementary and intermediate education as mandatory to all citizens. It also provided all levels of education free of charge, including higher education, training and scholarships. Kuwait also opened up adult education facilities free of charge to eradicate illiteracy. 630 government schools were operating in the year 2002, in addition to around 350 private schools. These schools encompassed all levels of education and were open to both Kuwaiti and non-Kuwaiti students. With regards to higher education, Kuwait provided 2 large institutes that are built to the latest standards and provide for all the manpower needs to the local market. These are Kuwait University, which was inaugurated in 1966 and is now attended by thousands of students of different nationalities in 26 theoretical sections and 19 scientific sections. The second facility is the Public Authority for Applied Education and Training, which supervises 4 applied science colleges consisting of different sections. The authority also provides a variety of training services through its various training centers. The 2 institutes have enabled Kuwait to assume a distinct position globally. Kuwait came first in terms of spending on scientific research and 36th in the field of human development. Achieving Kuwait's vision requires creating an educational environment that encourages learning, whether in school or in college. The strategic goals come as a practical interpretation of the state's vision for education, one that consists of three elements: learning, teaching, and evaluation. Another strategic goal is to spread a high sense of respect for the profession of education throughout society. That translates into demanding high ethical and competency standards to qualify for the profession. This also necessitates updating and developing the teaching, administrative, and technical groups in the field of education.
To give you an idea of some of the projects that are in progress for the purpose of developing education, there are large-scale projects such as updating the curriculum for science and mathematics in member countries. International expertise is being brought in for this purpose in order to achieve the highest level whilst maintaining appropriateness to our environment.
في تطوير هاتين المادتين وفق البيئة المحلية لكي نحصل على الحقيقة تقنية عالية وخبرة عالية وأيضا موائم لبيئتنا العربية الخليجية.
The number of those who attend educational institutes should also be emphasized, as this reflects the extent to which graduates possess the necessary competence and skills to participate in the development process and to enable them to compete in the labor market, and be capable of absorbing and benefiting from future technological developments without jeopardizing their national identity and cultural belonging. Perhaps the most sensitive strategic goal is strengthening the relationship between educational institutes and production and business organizations in the community. The GCC Supreme Council proposed 6 main projects to realize the vision and strategic goals. The projects are intended to meet the needs of developing the region's educational institutes. The first project targets developing curriculum and educational operations. It includes updating teachers, superintendents, and the culture that prevails in educational facilities. It also includes establishing a Center for Higher Education Strategic Development. The second project targets professionalizing teaching in GCC countries, whereby teachers undergo a series of development programs ending with certification to practice teaching, thus improving teaching standards. The third project targets improving the managerial performance of educational institutions through a series of programs prepared for specifically this purpose. The fourth project targets establishing e-universities and e-schools so modern technology is put to use in spreading education. The fifth project targets improving the level of output in light of the actual needs of society and coordinates these needs with the outputs of higher education institutions. The sixth project targets establishing partnerships between educational institutions and community institutions in a manner that encourages integration between the two. The people of the region, as well as the governments, take educational development very seriously out of the firm belief that education is the tool for enabling people to cope with the requirements of modern living.
The development of curriculum and programs is an ongoing activity. Perhaps every 2 years, we must revise our curriculum and augment it with the use of modern technology by a panel of some of the best teachers. By doing this, I believe we are best serving the interests of our educational facilities, education in general, the graduates, and ultimately the entire society by providing for the level of development we aspire to achieve.
The education process in the Gulf was successful not only in achieving its goals in terms of the development of society, but also simultaneously maintaining, indeed strengthening, the national identity base and sense of belonging that stems from the teachings of Islam and the Arab culture. It has also achieved major leaps in updating and better preparing teachers and educators. On a final note, transforming developmental efforts and programs into a reality requires the commitment and support of the political leadership of each country. Development is an ongoing process that comes from the beliefs and enthusiasm of its stakeholders. It is, after all, the vehicle that will take us to the life and future we want. Nobody can argue with the efforts exerted by GCC countries in facilitating and providing the tools for the sons and daughters of the area to better cope with the demands of modern living in confidence and competence.